Hi, I'm Louie, Head of Acquisitions at my art broker. If you're thinking about selling some Andy Warhol prints, here are a few things that you might want to think about. Andy Warhol was one of the greatest figures of American pop. He was born in Pittsburgh, born in 1928. He passed in 1987. He was one of the most influential figures of the 60s, 70s, and 80s in American culture. Today, Andy Warhol's influence is absolutely undeniable. I mean, all of today's contemporary artists, Banksy, Invader, Damien Hirst, Russell Young, they've all referenced Warhol in one way or another, which, truly is a testament to his lasting influence on contemporary culture. A number of factors influence the value of an Andy Warhol print. Things such as the condition of the print, whether the print is authentic or not, provenance of the print, whether the print is a regular edition or whether it's an artist proof, a trial proof, a printer's proof, whether it's hors commerce, or whether a print was hand-signed by the artist, or whether a print was published posthumously and is unsigned, is obviously going to have an impact on value. So if you take Andy Warhol, for example, if you possess a Sunday Be Morning print that was not hand-signed by the artist, if you look on the back, it should say, published by Sunday Be Morning, sign your name here. Obviously, that's not going to have the same value as a print that was published during the 80s and that was hand-signed by the artist.
Here's a little insider information, all right? Warhol's printer late in life was a guy named Rupert Jason Smith. I mean, there was a guy before him named Alexander Heinrici, who I met years ago, who was, just a great, great printer. Rupert was a, first-rate printer too, but he was a lot looser in how he handled things. There were rumors going around for years that when Andy would go to Rupert and say, okay, here, you're doing the endangered species, here are the images. A printer would typically run what they call artist proofs, which is legitimate. You're trying different color combinations. You're trying to come up with a set of colors that will make Andy happy. Andy might give you guidelines and say, okay, we're doing, an orangutan today, part of the endangered species. And, Rupert might say, what colors, Andy? And Andy go, oh, I don't know, make it very pop or something. He often talked in vague terms. So Rupert would run off a bunch of these animals and say, okay, here's one, oh, it's minty green. How do you like that, Andy? Or here's one in shocking pink, or maybe here's one with the two of them, and he'd run off a bunch of these, okay? And this was all legit, this was fine. Andy would eventually settle on a color combination, and then you'd print the entire edition. Now, technically, as a print publisher, you're supposed to label these prints as trial proofs or color proofs, and all of that is fine. And Andy would frequently sign those. The edition would come out as, okay, there are 200 in the edition, but there are also 50 trial proofs and then 10 color proofs. And they became a big part of the art market because Warhol liked to produce a lot of artist proofs that enlarged the edition. And frequently, Andy would keep some for his own use, for gifts, maybe for Christmas presents. The publisher, the person who was in charge, he'd get some. The printer himself, Rupert Jason Smith, he'd get some. He might even give a few to his assistants. So they were used. But they entered circulation. Once you owned one, you could do what you wanted with it. Where it got dicey, they were known to print a lot of extras, so to speak. And these were ones that Andy may never have even seen. They certainly weren't signed by him. Yet they were perfect. I mean, you look and go, hey, that's it, man. That's the right size, right paper, right printer. They were even on the printer's paper. Like the printers would often include an embossing. They call it a chop mark. So you knew it came from this publisher. So everything's right as rain. But there was one problem. Andy didn't approve these. He wasn't aware that these had been run off. Or if he was, he looked the other way and he's like, well, I don't know. So now you have a real problem, where I see these as an authenticator and people say, what do you mean? It's perfect. He did this. And I go, yes, It came from his studio. Yes, this was his printer. Yes, the colors are right, the image is right, the dimensions are right, the ink is right, da 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 da. But the way art authentication works is it's about what is the intent of the artist. That's everything. That's the whole ball game. Did Andy intend for this print to come out and represent him as an artist? And if he didn't sign it or look at it or approve it, at least with the prints, you cannot call it a genuine Andy Warhol. You can say it came out of Warhol's print studio or his publisher, and it has some value, but not much. It just becomes, a handsome, unique poster in my book. But that's the art market.
So most of the time, what happens in Andy Warhol's factory is that once an artwork was created, once a print was printed in a limited number of editions, there would be a number of accompanying prints that might be very slightly different in the details, because Andy Warhol liked to experiment with different types of printmaking. He might want to experiment with colorways, and obviously if you have a print that differentiates itself from the regular editions, that's just going to be rarer, and therefore more people are going to want to acquire it. We all know that collectors want to get their hands on quote-unquote unique pieces for various reasons. Obviously, it's a way of getting closer to the artist. So naturally, if you possess an artist proof, with small details that differentiate it from all of the other prints on the market, that's going to drive value up. So marquee sales at auction play a very important role in impacting the value of prints and multiples. I'll give you an example. If in a major auction house during an evening sale, an original artwork by Andy Warhol reaches a record-breaking price, obviously that is going to drive demand and price point up for your print. So in 2022 at Christie's, Shot Sage Blue Marilyn by Andy Warhol sold for a record-breaking $195 million. That is an absolutely stupendous price. Obviously, if you possess a Marilyn print, that's going to gain in value due to, as a ripple effect from that sale. It is incredibly important to get an expert valuation for your Warhol prints. Price points can be all over the place depending on who you go to. If you have an Andy Warhol print and that you ask for a valuation from a gallery, and then from an auction house, and then from a private broker, you might get very different results. Now, I always say, the most important thing to do is to make sure that you have an insurance valuation, because if your house burns down, God forbid, and that you need to get the print replaced, then obviously that price point is going to be determined by the true value of the artwork and where it sits in the market. If you go to a gallery, it's a free market. A gallery is very welcome to sell a print for absolutely any price point. So, don't be fooled. You want to know what your print is truly worth. My recommendation is to go straight to an expert. Go straight to an Andy Warhol specialist who will be able to give you an accurate sales valuation based on a number of things. Is your print authentic? Is it in excellent condition? What type of edition is it? Where did you get it from? All of those things will determine the true value of your print.
When buying a Warhol print, I would say, you start, of course, with the image. How does the image look? Does it relate to others in the series that are known to be genuine? We could talk for hours. For instance, Warhol did 2 sets of Campbell's soup cans, and these have proven very, very popular. And now, as time has gone on, they've become very valuable. There are some prints that are done they look like reproductions. The paper is wrong. If you look around, for instance, I'll give you one of the tricks. If you look around the soup can label, there's a silver area, which indicates it's part of the can. Well, Warhol used a little black ink. They're abstract squiggles, so they look like reflections. Well, some of the fakes are missing a single black dot, I believe, that was in the original, but for some reason, whoever made these new screens blew it. They missed this one black dot. This is true, okay? And you're like, wow, that's really pushing things. And if you didn't know that, you wouldn't know to look for it because you'd hold the two up and go, they look good to me. The other thing is make sure you get one in good condition. This is a real problem in the print market. There are a lot of prints out there. If you talk about Warhol Maryland prints, a lot of them are faded. People had no idea these were going to be worth anything. The Marylands were released, I'm guessing 67. It was $500 for a portfolio of 10. I don't know, what are they now? 3 million, 3 million 5. And people, it was inconceivable this would be worth anything. All right. I've seen Warhol Marylands where they were actually cut down so they could fit in a frame. You know, someone brought it to a framer and frame it. I'm off by half an inch. Here's the exact amount. There we go. It's like, oh my God, nobody knew. A lot of them were glued down, to the backing board. They weren't worth anything. A lot of them were hung in sunlight. People just didn't know how sunlight would fade these things. So I would say the best advice, deal with people pay up. There's no deals. You got to pay for what you want, buy the best you can afford, and make sure it's in good condition. Those are the keys to buying prints, certainly to buying Warhol prints.
Timing is key when wanting to sell an artwork. It's very important to bear in mind how an artist has been performing on the market. Now, with Andy Warhol, once again, Andy Warhol passed 36 years ago actually. Nevertheless, demand has been steadily increasing. So no matter when you buy, no matter when you sell, you're almost guaranteed to make a good investment and to have a return on your investments. However, there are a few things to bear in mind when choosing the right moment to sell. Make sure that you're looking at auction results. Make sure that you bear in mind how recent artworks have been performing on the market and how that's going to impact the value of your prints. It's important to know when to seize the right opportunity. For example, if a specific artwork by Andy Warhol has been doing consistently well in the market, but that the value has somewhat plateaued, and that all of a sudden a bidding war has been declared and that a specific artwork has performed incredibly well and achieved a record-breaking price, that is your window of opportunity. That's when you want to take your prints and go see an expert and get an accurate, up-to-date sales valuation, because that's your window. There is increasing demand for complete sets with matching editions. So in 2021, complete sets accounted for 43% of total sales value for Andy Warhol, and that number keeps increasing. In 2022, it jumped to 50%, and in 2023, we are expecting for that number to rise even more. Many collectors are very keen on acquiring full sets from Andy Warhol's portfolios. Think endangered species, ads, ladies and gentlemen. Why acquire one when you can acquire the full set?